Hello everybody and welcome to a new video and welcome to my channel where we talk about everything music from death metal to Queen and everything in between. So I was talking to my buddy Marcel and he sends me this link to this ultimateguitar.com article entitled Mick Mars explains what set Motley Crue apart from other 80s bands, recalls why they decided to tune down. And then the article itself links to a YouTube video titled Mick Mars invites me into his home to show me his guitar collection. So I was like, whatever, I'm down, I'll watch this video because I'm not really a Motley Crue fan, even though I do like a song or two. But I know Marcel is, and I'm always down to watch, guitar related stuff. So I'm watching the video and all of a sudden, Mick Mars starts talking about tuning down to D standard as if he invented the thing. And I was like, dude, hell no. Because check this out, he actually credits Robert Fripp, one of the greats, for tuning down the low E string to D, a whole step, resulting in what we now know as drop D tuning.
People like Robert Fripp,
Yeah.
right, from King Crimson,
Yeah.
would just drop his E to a D.
Yeah.
He's played it like that for years. And
Like
let's do the whole guitar.
He also talks about Eddie Van Halen and Jimi Hendrix tuning down to E flat standard, which is half a step below standard E.
People like Van Halen, I've known those guys forever.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And we played clubs together. Anyway, Ed would tune his guitars to E flat. Jimi Hendrix did too.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, let's go down.
But that's it as far as crediting goes. He just blatantly makes it seem like he put two and two together and said, you know what, let's drop it a whole step down and let's see what that sounds like. And according to him, they did try it out when they were rehearsing and he was like, oh man, this is cool, let's just drop the guitar down to D standard. But we know better. Kudos to Kylie Olsen because she called him out and said, you went full Keith Richards because he used to tune down to D. So she knew he was full of shit. And he just kind of said nothing to it. He just brushed her off.
Let's do a Keith. You went
D.
Keith Richards to a D because he's to a D as well, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was it. And then it kind of like was the sound of Motley.
Which is ridiculous. Of course, he went on to say, we sounded different from everybody in Hollywood. We were heavier, blah, blah, blah. And of course, Keith Richards is not going to sound heavy. But you know who did invent drop tuning and sounded heavy as f***? Black Sabbath. Hell yes. So I told my buddy Marcel about it and he was like, enlighten me. So I was like, dude, I'm going to make a video and I'm going to tell you the story of why Black Sabbath, how to tune down the strings. So here we go. But before we get to that, if you enjoy the content and you want to help support the channel big time, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel like a man if you haven't yet. And if you can, please consider becoming a patron to the channel. A little goes a long way and we surely do appreciate it. So check this out. Anthony Frank Iommi Jr., or as we know him, Tony Iommi, the guitar player from Black Sabbath, was 17 years old, working at a factory in Birmingham, his hometown. And of course, what line of work could he have been on other than metal? And I believe he was a welder there. Anyway, as Murphy's Law will have it, on his last day there, on his last shift, he was told to work a metal flattening machine for the first time ever. And of course, he famously had an accident where he cut the tips of these two fingers right off. Now keep in mind, he is a lefty, so this was his fretting hand. He would have to press on the strings with this hand, with no tips on his fingers. Of course, he was rushed to the hospital and they cleaned the wounds right up, but not only did he damage his skin, tissue, and muscle, he also had some nerve damage, which causes him to not feel the tips of his fingers. The doctor, with a sad attempt of a joke, said, well, you can forget about playing guitar ever again. And that infuriated Tony. I mean, not a lot of people knew, but that was his big passion. He wanted to play guitar. So of course, Tony couldn't think about a future without his beloved guitar. Just like if anything like that would have happened to you or me, I think we would try to overcome whatever was in our path so that we could go on and play guitar again. But for Tony, especially back then, it was a big hit, it was a big deal, it was really hard to overcome. So he started to get depressed and he wouldn't get out of bed. But one fateful day, the factory foreman actually decided to go pay Tony a visit and he brought a gift with him that would change his life and our lives forever. He actually brought a record for Tony. And Tony was all like, what is this guy thinking? I'm not gonna play that. Last thing I want to do is listen to music right now, especially music by a guitar player. But the foreman pointed out that the guitar player on the record was Django Reinhardt, and he famously played with only two fingers. So if Django could be a guitar virtuoso with only two fingers on the guitar, maybe Tony could do the same as well. And that ignited a fire within Tony, and he was determined to go back and play guitar as best and as much as possible. So right there and then, Tony decided that he was going to play guitar no matter what. So he started looking for practical solutions so that he could play guitar again. The first thing he tried out was the more logical approach, so he flipped the guitar. He tried to play it righty, you know, being a lefty. But quickly he discarded that because it was just too hard and he already knew so much that it was just really frustrating. So he decided, I'm going to supplement my fingers so that I can press on the strings once again. So using all the skills he had learned at the metal factory, he tried out different techniques and materials to try to get that accomplished. He first tried out making thimbles out of melted plastic, and they fitted right and they were very manageable, but once you put the plastic to the string, it just didn't feel right. You couldn't really do a lot of things. It sounded different, weird, and he couldn't really control the vibrato. Just the way he touched the string wouldn't really work. So he decided rubber would be a better option. So he tried that. Then one day he decided, we'll try leather. That's the closest thing to like skin. So he decided to cut up an old leather jacket he had, and he started using those as prosthetics. And finally, he hit it in the head. That sounded like, you know, a regular finger pressing down on strings, but he had to completely reinvent the way he played guitar. You know, subtle things, but, you know, for instance, he wouldn't do a power chord like this anymore. He would actually use his pinky. And forget full-on chords. He would just do power chords instead. But even that proved to be a really hard task to accomplish. But that was nothing compared to when it came to guitar solos. Because of his injury, he couldn't really bend strings as well as he wanted to, because it would hurt. And I don't know if you've ever played guitar after you've hurt your finger, but it hurts like a bitch. Which brings me full circle to the beginning of the video. Because of the fact that in the late 60s, early 70s, they didn't really have as many options when it came to guitar string gauges as we do today. I believe back then there were 10 gauge strings. The only thing that Tony Iommi could resort to was to drop the tension on the strings so that he didn't have to press down on them as hard. And that, my friends, resulted in all sorts of drop tunings. He tried E flat, standard D, and of course more famously, C sharp standard, which is a whole step and a half below standard E, or a whole 3 frets if you want to see it that way. So yeah, that was down tuned as fuck, and that's why it sounds so heavy, so gnarly, and so awesome. So yeah, Mick, don't go around telling people you invented standard D tuning, because it was invented by the godfathers of metal about 10 years before Motley Crue even came about. There's a great life lesson there. We all know the old saying. So if life hands you lemons, go make some fucking lemonade and make some innovations out of your limitations. Anyway guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please drop me a like if you did. Drop me a comment in the comment section down below and let me know if you knew the story. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel like a man. And if you've got a minute or two, check out one of these 2 videos. I'll see you guys next time. Pat out, middle on, dudes.